Hi, welcome to another tutorial by Kyle Simpson from Simpson Studios. This is Cubase tutorials, and I'm gonna go over a really this has been a life-saving tool for a lot of engineers for a long time. And what's funny, most engineers don't even know anything about it. I know a lot of people that use Cubase religiously and have no idea about this awesome tool, especially if you have a lower end computer. If you're running, a dual processor server computer with 16 gigs of RAM or 32 gigs of RAM, you're probably fine. You'll never need this. But for some of those that are starting, on a standard computer or lower budget studio and just need to get a quick fix on this, I'm going to show you the freeze option. Now, the freeze option is actually, if I select an audio track, you'll see this little snowflake here. Actually, I put my arrow over it. Freeze audio channel. Now, for VST instruments, which is normally what's taking up, well, I guess it just really depends, but there a lot of VST instruments will they're just CPU hogs. So we'll go to devices or memory hogs too. VST instruments. And they're the same thing. There's that little snowflake. Now, if you don't have something assigned, you cannot freeze an inactive instrument, or you cannot freeze something that's not assigned, things like that. So it'll keep you from freezing useless stuff. What freezing does is take, for instance, let me show you. If you go to devices, go to VST performance or F12. Now, this track here is just a track actually I wrote for a client and pieced together. It's not even done yet, but I just wanted to give you an idea. I'll actually tell you right here, this blue line here that's kind of bouncing around is your real-time peaking. This is right here. This is your CPU load. This is how much processing is being put on your CPU, which when you're running Cubase or actually any sort of DAW, you want to make sure all of your other programs are turned off, because if you've got all these different programs up and running and they're eating away at your CPU usage, you're not going to have a whole lot left over here. You want, when you start assigning a bunch of plugins and a bunch of instruments, you're going to want as much room as you possibly can, because this sucker will go up really quick. So the green bar is your average. It's obviously not as jumpy, but it's just kind of showing you where you're sitting at. So for me, though, on my other screen, I'll show you this. If you hit F3 to bring up your mixer, you got a little bit of space over here. So you can right-click, go to Customize Toolbar, Performance Meter, and there we have it. Now you've always got it up. And if you're running dual screen like I am, I can just peek over real quick and look at where my performance is. Obviously for here, I'm only running, what is that, 25%, 20%. So I'm doing really good on this track, but I'm going to do a demonstration. Let's take, for instance, let's see, I'm running a bass track, a MIDI bass track actually. And okay, so I'm running IK Multimedia's Ampeg software, which is absolutely fantastic. I have never found a better simulated bass amp before in my life. Running the SVT4 Pro, it was just really rich tone that I have not been able to find with any other plugin. I've tried several different ones, and I always come back to this one. It's fantastic. So I've got Ampeg running now. With Ampeg, if I turn off Ampeg, if you watch my performance meter and I turn off Ampeg, see, it dropped. It definitely dropped a few percentage. So let's say I'm running that. I'm going to run Ampeg, and then of course I'm running my bass compressor, which doesn't take up much anyway. And let me pull up the Chris Lord-Alge bass plugin, and have it doing some stuff here. Pull the compressor. Yeah, sure. That going, and then let's just I'm trying to get the performance up, so let's go. Let me just assign another Ampeg track, because Ampeg, it's a great tool, but it eats your CPU alive. This is your CPU load. This is not your memory load. This is how much your real-time, your processor is being used. So now we're up to, looks like about 45%. Just for kicks, I'm going to add one more Ampeg here. All right, now we're getting up there. Now, Now, obviously, this is also when it's idling, it's going to show you where it's sitting at even as an idle, which again for this plugin it eats up a lot. When I'm running in real time, it's going to eat up even more because now it's processing your bass signal and giving you that sound all in real time. Now we got 3 ampegs doing it, so you'll notice a big jump when I hit play. Looks like it jumps up to about 75%. So let's say you're running 50 tracks and you've even got one bass amp. Well, sometimes just, you're like, well, I don't want to, I'm not ready to bounce the MIDI track to a wave yet because I'm still working on it, but I've got to get some of this stuff relieved. This is where you can come around and use your freeze option. Now, in an audio track, it's right up here in the top right hand corner. In a MIDI track, it is not. But what I want to show you is you can go back up to devices, VST instruments. Now you remember, actually I'm going to pull this up so you can see where this is at. The freeze option, what it does is it is going to freeze this channel to where, this is my bass track, to where I can't even move anything, I can't edit anything. But what it does is it'll freeze this and it'll play an audio file in place. It's going to render it down to a hidden audio file that you can't see, and it's going to play it in place. But it will also turn off all of your plugins and lock your MIDI tracks until you need to get back into them to edit. So we'll go to VST instruments. Here's my bass. I'm going to tell it freeze. And it's going to ask me, do I want to just freeze the instrument, which is coming out of Contact Player, which sometimes just the instrument alone, if you have just like one compressor on, it's not doing anything, you can keep it at freeze instrument only if you want. Freeze instrument and channels is where it's going to freeze the Contact Player or the slate drums or whatever instrument you're using and all of the inserts that you've put in there. Tail size is used for, right now it's set to 10-second tail size. And I'll show you what that means. Let's say you're on a MIDI instrument, and as soon as you let off this note, it has a cool little echo. It has a cool little echo or reverb that hangs over. If you set that tail size to 0, it is going to render down until the end of the MIDI track. So it cuts off right there. So if you let off that MIDI track, there's not going to be any hangover at all. So I like to have about a 10-second tail size. It's an invisible tail, and it's probably going to come out here. So if I have anything that's reverberating off of that note or has an echo, then I'll know that it's in there. So again, I like to have the tail size about 10 seconds. Freeze instrument and channels if you have a bunch of things running, and hit OK. Okay, I jumped the jumped the clip to 10 seconds remaining. Obviously, depending on your plugins you are using, if I just had like one bass amp and one compressor, that would have probably bounced down much quicker. But I'm just really putting a load on that track just to show you. Now, actually, I wanted to have that up. If I look back at my CPU load, look at that. I mean, I just eliminated, a good 40% of what was being used. And when I hit play, it's also not using the processing. Let me put it where it belongs. So that is 10 times better. Now there are other loads. I'm running, guitar amps, and I'm running other plugins. So there's going to be a jump, but none of this, everything that got frozen here, and you can see I can try double clicking the inserts. I cannot get into it. I can still mix. I can still pull up the editor and add EQ, basic things like that, or even the channel strip would actually work too. But I can't do the basic functions. I can't edit those until I unfreeze. So I see if I come out here, now you see the bass, there's a little lock. on the bass track. And I can't edit anything. If I come up here, everything is grayed out. But the cool thing is, so bass is still there. It's still playing the same volume that it had, but now it's not using up my CPU. Now, of course, yeah, we can totally just bounce the track down to a wave, but let's just say you're not done with it yet, or you're still playing with the chord progression, and you might change it, and you just want to have it there for now. That's where the freeze option comes in handy. Now, let's say it's time to go in. Oh, I missed a note. I need to change something. You can see also here, see, I can't edit anything. I can't even rename it. It's all frozen. Now, if I click that, it'll actually ask, do you want to unfreeze a channel? You can keep the frozen files. I believe it puts it in a document folder. I'm not honestly sure because I never keep them. It keeps them somewhere, and it's just a raw WAV file if you decided you want to keep the freeze files. For me, though, I froze them normally because I'm going to come back to them. So I'm going to hit unfreeze, and you'll see it unlocked all the tracks, unlocked everything, and it puts you back to normal where you can get into the bass track. So that is the basics of an audio track. Now, that was the MIDI track. An audio track is much easier. Let's say this guy's vocals, which I think I have everything off anyway. But it's the same thing now. You can get to it much quicker in your main options area. You can click that, do the same thing, select your tail size, hit OK. See, I don't have anything assigned to it, so it was really quick. Same thing, locked me out of the track, but now, see, I could have assigned, my compressors and my vocal tuners and limiters and hallways and gates and cool vocal effects and all of that stuff. If you got 4 or 5 tracks of vocals with all those effects, it's going to add up really fast. So that's where the freeze option comes in handy. It completely relieves your system of that processing until you need to get back in. So that's the freeze option. If you got any other questions about it, I'll be more than happy to help answer.